You are listening to Inspired Caring with Michelle Magner, episode number 153. Hello, welcome to Inspired Caring. I'm your host, Michelle Magner. If you are caring for an older family member, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I bring insight, tips, inspiration, and strategies to help you care for the people that you love without losing yourself along the way. Having cared for both of my grandmothers, I've helped manage everything from hospital stays, households full of belongings, to navigating senior living and end-of-life care. And I've worked in senior living as a result of that experience, serving my residents and their families as they've been on this journey too. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Inspired Caring. I'm very excited to have Caregiver Dave on the podcast today. Dave Nassaney, he has been a caregiver for a really long time. In our email communication, I said you are the OG of really.
And I didn't know what that meant. I had to ask one of my employees, and she started laughing. And then I asked Google what it meant.
Yes, the OG of really elevating this role of caregiver in our families and starting to really talk about, who are we and what do we need and how can we help each other? So very grateful to have you here today. You have been a caregiver for your wife, Charlene,
Yeah.
for many years. How did you two meet?
Well, it's a great story, and I love telling it. Um, I met Charlene when I was, I actually met Charlene's husband before I met Charlene.
Whoa.
I know. I was like 17, I think. And I was a sailor, and I used to go sailing all the time while I was in college and stuff. And it was hard to find people to go sailing with me. But I found this guy who was a friend of this guy who worked at my father's gas station. And he seemed to have all the time in the world. And I says, "Don't you work?" And he says, "Well, I run constantly estate sales." Well, it turns out, he's like Sanford and Son. His house is a big garage sale, and it's always, one time he sold the couch under for his mother-in-law one time.
Oh my
Always
gosh.
keep hearing that story. Anyway, one time he says, "Hey, can I bring my wife?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And he's like 30, I'm like 17, or he's in his late 20s. I think he's like 10 years older than me. And so he brings her, and no big deal. She's old. He's old. I'm young.
Mhm.
Anyone over 30 in those days, you didn't trust. But so fast forward like 3 years, and now I'm 20, and I'm still putting together sailing trips. And I'm at her girlfriend's house, and I didn't even, she was in the background kind of eavesdropping. And all of a sudden I hear this voice that says, "I want to go sailing too." And I look up and I says, "Do I know you?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm John's wife or ex-wife." And I says, "Oh, I'm sorry." She says, "Well, don't be. He was a real jerk."
Oh.
And I says, "So you went sailing with me one time, right?" He says, "Yeah." I says, "Did you get sick?" She goes, "No." I says, "Okay, you can come." And then a strange thing happened. The very next day, I get this phone call from her. She didn't have my number. Girlfriend must have given it to her. She goes, "Oh, this is Charlene. I just want to thank you so much for inviting me to go sailing." And I'm thinking, okay, this is strange. She goes, I want to invite you over to dinner. I'm a gourmet cook. I didn't know what that word meant because I'm just a kid.
Mhm.
But I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I'm a college student, starving. Okay, I'll go. And so I show up that Friday, and I ring the doorbell, not knowing what to expect. And so the door swings open, and I'm hit with like three aromas that so I was able to figure out what some of them were. One was her perfume. It was Giorgio, which
Mhm.
smelled really, really good. The next was incense. It was the 70s. We all had incense in the 70s. And the third one was this, I couldn't identify it. It was an amazing aroma coming from the kitchen because I'm Middle Eastern, and I was raised on Syrian food, which I hated. and burnt meat because my father liked his meat well done,
Hmm.
And I had a very limited palate, but and then I noticed there were flickering candles in the background. It was dark, and then I heard this music, unforgettable.
Oh my goodness.
That's what you are. And I'm saying, oh crap, I'm on a date. And then and then I like everything froze, like those TV shows where I'm the only one moving and they're all frozen. And I'm
Hmm.
saying, oh, do I want to be on a date with this older woman? And so I remember checking her out, from top to bottom, and she looked pretty good. Never noticed it before, and she had this moo thing on that they wore in the 70s. And
Hmm.
I remember saying to myself, you can do this. And so everything started moving again. And she says, oh, you're going to love the dinner. The theme tonight is everything is stuffed. We have stuffed dessert, stuffed Cornish game hens, stuffed caviar with mushrooms, and some other things that were stuffed. And I don't remember what else, but by the end of the evening, I was certainly stuffed. And it was a wonderful evening that we had, and we talked a lot, and we did a lot of things, and needless to say, by the next day, she was my girlfriend.
Oh my gosh.
And so we went sailing, and we had a great time. We rent the boat for 48 hours, and so we'll leave at midnight from Marina del Rey and go to Catalina, and we'll get there when the sun's coming up. And we just talked and talked and talked, did the getting to know you dance. And it was a great weekend. And we hit a storm coming back, but that's another story. I was afraid that she wouldn't go out with me again because everyone was getting sick and turning green and barfing over the side. And
Hmm.
I looked over there and I saw her barfing. I said, "Oh,"
It's over.
but we made it home. Some people didn't think we did. We would. No, we're gonna die. And I said, shut up, just do your job. I've been through storms worse than this, which I haven't, but you don't want to lose the confidence of the crew. Anyway, when we made it back, she said, I knew you'd get us back because you're the captain. And so she did go out with me again and again and again. And 15 years later, we got married. So fast forward, it's like 21 years into our 49-year marriage. And we're in the empty nest phase of life. We had a storybook, romance, courtship, and marriage, like a fairy tale. And it was just great. We would never fight. And we were in love, and we got married when I was 21 and she was 31. And she had a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old daughter, 5-year-old and 10-year-old daughter from a previous marriage, and a crazy ex-husband. Uh,
Hmm.
but fools rush in where angels dare to tread. And so we were in the empty nest phase of life. We had financial freedom, and we got all the kids out of the house. We had a daughter between us as well. We even got them all married off, each one twice, and one of them 3 times. But she started complaining about this headache she had for 3 days, the headache of her life. She wanted to call Dr. Kevorkian, and uh,
Hmm.
she was kidding, of course, but unfortunately, by the fourth day, it turned into a stroke. She lost her speech, became paralyzed on one side, and everything changed. It all turned upside down for us. And Charlene became angry and bitter at everything and everyone. But, I was the one who was around the most. So I was getting the brunt of it. And I just remember, after a few months of this, just writing her a letter. I said, I can't take this. I said, Charlene, why are you so mean? It's so hard being your husband and your caregiver. I know it's hard on you, but you're making it hard on me, and I just don't think I can be with you anymore. I mean, I'll take care of you financially, but just can't be with you.
Hmm.
I read the letter over and over again, and I said, how can I give this to the mother of my children and to my soulmate, to the woman I've been with for 21 years, and I couldn't do it. So I just filed it away. Went on in my misery and my loneliness and my aloneness, and I remember finding a business card in my pocket. I don't know who gave it to me or how long I had it. I was living in the hospital with her for like 6 weeks. It was probably during that time. And it was inviting me to a caregiver support group. I didn't even know what a caregiver was. Certainly didn't know what a support group was, but I figured, well, somebody gave it to me. Maybe I should go. What I got to lose. So I went. And that's when everything changed for me. I met people there just like me, burned out caregivers. I learned, that the airlines tell you in the event of an emergency, put your oxygen mask on first before you help your loved one. And so I just started taking care of me first because I had permission now.
Hmm.
Uh, and it felt very selfish, but I did it so that I could take care of her. And slowly but surely, she started changing very slowly, but she started becoming her old self again. Our love was rekindled. And I just decided that, hey, there are a lot of other caregivers out there that are just like me. I don't want them to go through the pain I went through. I don't want them to give up like I almost gave up. So I became Dave, the caregiver's caregiver. I started a podcast, which became a syndicated radio show, heard in all 50 states, 135 countries, been doing it for 10 years now. I wrote 4 books, 3 of them about caregiving, one about my gas station, and started a website, caregiverdave.com. And I have a Facebook page, 34,000 caregivers, Caregiver Dave. And it's full of tools and resources and everything. I've been on 59 network TV morning shows all across the country, from Hawaii to Washington, D.C., spoken on as many stages, Harvard, NASDAQ, Carnegie Hall, the London Stock Exchange, just sharing with caregivers, how to help your loved one's illness or disease to not kill you. And I've been doing that for like 10 years now. And I guess that's the story. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
How were you able to? I mean, that is a lot. That is a lot. That's that.
That is a lot. I've lived a full life. I'm 70 now. I just turned 70. I'm going to retire from the gas station. And I don't know what's next, but I'll just take it one day at a time
I
while I'm
mean,
still young and healthy.
how did the hammock 5 minutes with Dave in the hammock start? How
Oh,
did that
well, that
start?
started very young. I mean, I was a teenager going to high school, and just all my life, I mean, as a child, they told me all would do is ask questions. I was always
Mhm.
asking questions, and they were getting tired of me asking questions. So, uh, but I had a lot of wisdom for a young kid and for a
Mhm.
teenager. I mean, I would always counsel my friends. They'd say, "Well, how can I get this girl?" And I said, "It's easy. All you got to do is this and this and this and this, and they get the girl." If they
Mhm.
listened to me, and if they didn't, they wouldn't. And so, um, my mother was going through a divorce when I was a teenager, and she became a born again Christian, and she started preaching to me. And I says, I know God, just leave me alone, but she was a pest. I mean, she just really, when you come to church and, this is that. And I said, no. So she was smart. She started going to my girlfriend, and my girlfriend said, your mother invited me to church. I said, no, why did you say yes? Now I got to go. And so we went to this Monday night prayer meeting, and it was very interesting. Everyone's standing up there. It's like a miracle meeting where my marriage was on the rocks. We were getting a divorce, and all of a sudden, we met Jesus, and now we love each other, and we're not going to get a divorce. And so the guy's holding up X-rays. I had a brain tumor, and now it's gone, and I thought it was very interesting because I'm this intellectual who's going to USC, business major, and so I went back the following Monday and the following Monday, just out of curiosity. And then I see my brother up there with his wife. I knew they were going through a divorce. They were miserable, and their marriage got healed. And so I don't know what happened, but eventually, I guess we became Christians, and so we got married. And yeah, so she bought me a Bible, and so I'm reading the Bible, like a textbook, cover to cover.
Mhm.
And I get to the part about King Solomon and how, God says you can have whatever you want. And he says, well, I just want wisdom to rule my people. And he says, wow, most kings would ask for, me to kill their enemies or riches and glory and honor. But you want wisdom. I'm going to give you wisdom. I'm going to give you all that other stuff too. And I was so impressed with that because I kind of felt like I already had wisdom,
Mhm.
but I said, that's what I want. I want more of it. And I think that God just knew I was going to ask for it when I was 21. And so he gave it to me retroactively. And I noticed that I love hammocks. I love rocking chairs. I love anything that keeps moving. If you see me moving, that's my problem here. So when I lay on my hammock, I could just solve the problems of the world, solve my friends' problems, solve my problems. So I would get all this wisdom, and I started doing videos of 5 minutes a day's hammock wisdom, and there's just over 100 of them. And then I says, well, a lot of people don't have the internet, they don't have YouTube, so let me write a book. So I wrote a book, Secrets from the Hammock.
Hmm.
You know, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times. And I did the audio version, and it's hardback, paperback. And so basically it's my book of Proverbs, if I was Solomon, just practical wisdom and stuff like that. And so it's a great book on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, on Walmart. It's everywhere books are sold.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure that all of your links and books and everything is in the show notes so people can just really quickly track all this stuff down.
Thank you.
What do you feel most excited about coming up? Do you have any big projects coming up?
Well, do I have any, besides retirement? No, I've strived a lot for the last 10 years, just trying to do things for caregivers. But I've learned a disappointing fact about caregivers is that 30% of them die before their loved ones do, just
Yes.
from the stress. And if they're caring for a dementia patient or Alzheimer's, then 40% of them die before their loved ones do. And the rest of them, 50, 40, 30%, whatever it is, they don't die. They're the lucky ones. They just become sicker than the ones they care for, hospitalized, and eventually need a caregiver of their own. So that only leaves like 10% of caregivers out there, the 6 million of them, or 60 million, however
Hmm.
many there are. There's a lot of them, about a third of the population. They are, the healthy ones. And fortunately, I'm one of them. But I have 34,000 caregivers in my Facebook group, and the same statistics, about 90% of them are in bad shape, and half of them just are very negative. They just I give them advice and they don't take it, and they just like to complain and they like to be miserable, whereas a very small portion of them think it's a wonderful thing that they're getting to get to know their loved one, and spend time with them before they die, and this and that. So it's discouraging most of the time, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. So I just do what I can, and I don't stress over those that are just destined to misery. It's sad. I can
It's
only
really
help who
sad.
wants to be helped. And I'm doing fine. So, I lead by example, right?
Right. So when we were coming on the call together, you were talking about going to the gym. You actually ate breakfast
Yeah.
today. How
Yeah.
have you, I mean, you're obviously taking your own advice, but how
Yeah.
have you created that time to make yourself a priority?
Well, I'll just give you the spiel that I give on TV and stuff. I have a care formula, C.A.R.E. Communicate with your friends. Don't isolate yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
if you used to go to the gym before, do it, go to the gym again. Don't start complaining to your friends that were your friends, what a miserable day you had, and how your wife is complaining, or you had to change their diaper. Unfortunately, I don't have to change my wife's diaper, but there are people out there who have it a lot harder than I do. I mean, my job seems very easy compared to some of these people on my Facebook group. And I just really, my heart goes out to them. But I feel like God gives each of us tailor-made trials. And I have grace to
Mm.
do what I have to do to be me. And I don't have grace to be them, to deal with losing a child, or dealing with an autistic child, or dealing with someone with dementia, even though my mother and my mother-in-law, now my aunt are dealing with it. So I've had my share of dementia too. But I just do what I can do.
So within the care formula, we have C, which is communicate with your friends. What is
Yes.
A?
Okay, communicate with your friends. Don't isolate yourself. A, ask for help. I used to be able to have people actually offer help to me, and I would say, no, 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 I got it, I got it, I got it. I said, what's the matter with me? They're offering to help, but either I don't want to be indebted to them, now I owe them, or I don't want them to think that I don't have this, because guys, I'm an auto mechanic by profession, and um, then I turned my garage into a snack shop. So I mean, I like to fix things, and if I don't fix things, you feel like you're not a good mechanic and stuff.
You turned it
So,
into a what?
oh, into a snack shop, because someone might bring back a brake job that wasn't good, but they never bring back a Twinkie. So
Okay.
that's why a lot of garages at gas stations have turned into mini marts and stuff, little grocery
Okay.
stores. So ask for help, and be specific, hey, don't just say, hey, uh, have you got any time to help me? No, just say, hey, I could use some lettuce and cold cuts. Are you going to be at the grocery store? Can you pick some up next time you're there? Or just be
Hmm.
specific. So C.A.R.E, rest. Caregivers need 8 hours rest every single night. The average caregiver only gets 2 or 3. I can't survive on 2 or 3 hours, but that's what the average guy does. So get your rest, and then eat healthy food. Don't eat junk food. Junk food's got sugar, processed ingredients, all sorts of stuff, and all that stuff will kill you.
Hmm.
Eat healthy food. Don't eat fast food and stuff like that. So that's my care formula. My show, it talks about, um, how you should stay away from guilt. Caregivers are always feeling guilty about something. Either they're not doing something or not doing good enough, and the loved one isn't always doling out appreciation. A lot of times it's a thankless job, and they're complaining, and but you've got to take control of that. You've got to have boundaries, and something like, hey, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart, and you better be nice to me,
Hmm.
because I want to continue to do what I'm doing, and don't be abused by your loved one. And so with your loved one, I would say, hey, you know what? Uh, I'm gonna just go away for an hour and let you see how much I do here. I mean, you're not going to put their life in jeopardy or anything like that, but just on the level that they are, just let them know that you are not going to be abused. You're not going to be disrespected. This is give and take here. And if you appreciate me, I will appreciate you. We'll respect each other and so on. So, you have to just not feel guilty about it. And I liken guilt. There's two kinds of guilt in the world. There's deserved guilt, and there's undeserved guilt. Now, there are many people out there who will try to heap guilt on you that you don't deserve. So the first
Hmm.
thing, if you're feeling guilt, it's like a traffic cop. It's like saying, "Hey, wait, Danger Will Robinson. Uh, why are you feeling guilty? Do you deserve this guilt?" And you have to think. And if you're not sure, ask a trusted friend. Hey, my mother, said this to me, and it made me feel bad. Is she right? I mean, do I deserve it? Either they'll say, "Yeah, she's right," or they'll say, "No, you don't deserve that. Just ignore it." So if it's deserved guilt, then apologize, make restitution, change,
Hmm.
and then, like it was a dirty diaper and the poop is the guilt, just throw it away. Some people live with guilt days, weeks, years, for life, and you can't do that because guilt is a killer. Now,
Hmm.
if it's undeserved guilt, then you just have to say, you know what? I've looked at my own life. I've checked with another person, and they had no right to say that to me. I am not selfish. I am not whatever it is they're saying, and you just ignore it. You take that dirty diaper and you throw it away anyway,
Hmm.
and just ignore it, and then tell them, hey, you know what? I didn't like it when you said that because it's not true. And if you continue to believe this or say this, then it's going to affect our relationship. And maybe I might just resign as being your caregiver. And maybe my brother or sister, who are less compassionate than me, will take care of you. So let's just respect each other. You're going back to self-respect for each other. Yeah, I think of Sanford and Son with the guilt, because uh, remember that Lamont would um, would get a lot of abuse from his father. He
Hmm.
he he'd manipulate him and try to get him to do harebrained things and it went like this. He says, "Oh, it's a big one. No, it's not really. It's a big one. Wait a minute. I'm coming to meet you, honey. It's a big one." And Lamont would fall for that con every single time, and caregivers are the same way. You know,
Yeah.
so so don't let guilt kill you because it is a killer.
Well, if you're dead and gone, there's no one there to take care of the person that you're trying to take care of.
I know you really hold all the aces in the caregiver relationship. And yet, many times, and I see it and I hear it all the time, the loved one is in control. It's like the 2-year-old in many homes. The 2-year-old is controlling everything, and you're just kind of trying to make this 2-year-old happy, and you're driving yourself crazy. And you take them to the supermarket, and if they want their way, they have a temper tantrum, and we've all seen them at the supermarket, right? The 2-year-old who's controlling the parents. You cannot
Mhm.
let your loved one, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in comparing loved ones to 2-year-olds, but so many times it just fits the analogy. So
Mhm.
just again, respect, self-respect, both comes both ways. And if you allow them to abuse you, you know what, battered wife syndrome, it's my fault, he's beating me up. No, 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 no. So get a healthy head about just self-image of who you are. And this can be a beautiful thing, a caregiver relationship. And if it's a parent, a lot of people didn't have good relationships with their mother, with their father. Many times it was abusive. And
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I hear about there's a evangelist, Joyce Myers, Christian, and her father sexually abused her most of her life from puberty up to teenhood. And I mean, if you ever had a reason to hate your parent, that would be it. And then the mother who just allowed it to happen. But she forgave him later on in life. He needed care, and she became the caregiver, and later he became a Christian, and there was forgiveness, and she was happy because, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. It doesn't hurt them. It only hurts you. It rots your bones. It gives you ulcers. It gives you cancer.
Mhm.
And the other person just out there having a good old time. They don't know that you're hating them or not being forgiving to them. So just let go of unforgiveness. It's just a bad thing.
Oh my gosh, that lands so strongly with me because we had a situation with family and friends. Anyway, I was like seething and crying and upset and frustrated, and ultimately all the other adults involved were fine. Like nobody is shedding a tear, nobody is worrying or second guessing, and I am like racked with all of this negativity and emotion. And so the sooner I forgave this situation, which it
Yeah.
wasn't a situation that I needed to forgive the people, like everybody was adults, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Something that
forgive
happened to
yourself,
me.
you know?
Yeah. Forgive
It,
myself for really feeling that way.
yeah, absolutely.
How have you kept so I think one of the other things people get really caught up with is the role reversal, roles melding. Like we talk a lot about. I mean, how do you stay a husband and also a caregiver? And how has that worked for you to be a husband and a caregiver? I just know that a lot of
Hard.
it's very hard.
Yeah. And like I told you before, when I wrote that letter, that was me drawing the line in the sand. He says, you know what? Uh, I love you. I adore you. I'm here for you, but I'm not going to be abused. And if you don't change, and just at least give me all I needed was crumbs of
Mhm,
appreciation. Not a lot,
mhm,
just crumbs, and crumbs of love. And wasn't even getting that. And I was prepared. It's like buying a car, right? A new car, and being prepared to walk out of the showroom floor. They'll chase you. Oh, no, 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 I got a better price or whatever. They call it the takeaway in negotiations. And
mhm.
I was willing to walk away. And maybe that makes me a bad person, but I've got, if I'm miserable, how am I going to help anybody? It worked. She slowly turned around. And you know what? Today I'm reaping the benefits. We've been in this caregiver relationship for 27 years. She still cannot talk. She can communicate non-verbally through Pictionary and charades. Two games I hate, by the way, but I'm what am I? I'm learning to love. I my idea of hell was having to play charades and Pictionary for the rest of your life. That's hell, but it's here, and so God's given me the grace to try to enjoy. I get about 75% of what she's communicating. She's a great communicator. She
Mm,
communicates through her eyes, through her tonality. She makes, she knows about a dozen words, and the way she could say no like 100 different ways, and you know what
Mm,
each way means. Touch, gestures. Very fortunate, she can do something like this. You say, okay, you want to know what time it is? A lot of people at a stroke cannot even do that. They can't make the connection. Just depends on where the damage is in the brain. And, you blame yourself. I should have known more about strokes. I should have taken her to the medical center that was a bigger place instead of trusting the paramedics, because they said, where do you want to take her? I said, I don't know. Where would you take your wife if she's having a stroke? I don't know. They looked at each other and they decided to take her to this smaller private hospital that was closer instead of the larger medical center that was 10 minutes further. And, there's a 3-hour window for a stroke. So she missed it and she brain damage. It didn't have to be that way. But, I blamed myself. I had to forgive myself. I blamed everybody. I blamed doctors, tried to sue. Doctors aren't going to testify against each other. So you just accept the cards you're dealt. And, in many ways, it's been a good thing, her stroke. I know that sounds strange, but, you know, we've we we don't argue about a lot of things. Maybe we would be divorced if we didn't get a stroke. I don't know. All things work for good to them
mm.
that love God, and so we love each other more. We have more wisdom. We have more tolerance. We're just better people. And if that was the price of admission, then so be it. You have to look for the silver lining on the clouds, and the lemonades out of the lemons, and everything happens for a reason. And don't cry over spilt milk, my mother used to say. Just wipe it up.
I mean, clearly you're a problem solver. Have you done like the Gallup Strength Finders and the love languages test and you're dialed into your career? Like it seems like
Yes,
faith has
I've
really
done
pulled you
everything.
through. Yeah. Faith has pulled you through some intuition, some knowing has pulled you through. And then, let's touch on that. Like it sounds
Yeah,
like you really know
it all
yourself.
works. All works. Find out your wife's love language and speak it, because if her feeling loved means just holding her instead of buying her gifts, then that's what you need to do. And you need to not be, dense about this. And that's where Dave's hammock wisdom comes in handy, because I can figure things out. I'm very intuitive. And uh, not always, because women are very difficult to figure out, first of all, and sometimes I don't get the clues, but I eventually get them, and we are happier than we've ever been, I think. And we travel the world together. She has a powered chair because she still can't walk. She's still paralyzed on one side. And now we're planning a trip to Costa Rica in a couple of months. We have a friend who has family there, and she says, "Okay, I'll set up a tour. We'll do it all." And we've traveled to Acapulco, we've traveled to Hawaii, we've traveled uh, just places. It's easier to travel with a handicapped person, believe it or not, because you got the wheelchair, put all the luggage on the back of the chair. You go to the front of the line. If you go to Disneyland, you go to the front of the line. I mean, there are many benefits to being handicapped, and I'm enjoying all of them. And it's just a new normal. Yeah, I miss the old normal. We can't walk on the beaches like we used to, and we can't have those intimate conversations. We have, the best conversations we can. And sometimes, just a look is worth a million words. And
Mm.
they do say that communication is 80% nonverbal anyway. So she's got that part really down well.
I mean, it's not just adaptability. It just seems like it's part of your DNA to make things work, find the resources. What are some of the things that people are missing out on? Like what are the top 3 things that caregivers aren't doing that they need to be doing?
Well, first of all, it's hard for me to take credit for how I am, because I didn't make me, God made me.
Mm.
So he gave me, patience, and he gave me um empathy, although not a lot of empathy, but I've learned to, what he didn't give you, you learn to develop. So, your question, what are some of repeat your question
Mistake.
again?
Like, what are some of the three mistakes that caregivers are making that are putting them at risk? Because your attitude, I think, has been so healthy. It has been part of what has created the success in your health and your life.
Yeah. So, if I were to think of three mistakes that caregivers make, we've gone over a few of them. Just ask for help.
Mm,
Don't try to be a loner. Don't try to do it all by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. And put your needs first, like the oxygen mask analogy. Uh, many times my wife and she wants me to do something. I says, honey, I've got to do this first. And she'll give me this dirty look and I'll say, hey, I'm a caregiver. I must put my needs first. And then she gives me this other look, but she understands. And let's face it, so many caregivers will give and give and give and give, and there's nothing left to give, and then they burn out, and then they can't be a help to their loved ones. So you have to put your needs first, And then the last thing is, I think if we're going to limit it to three, um, don't don't beat yourself up. You're going to make mistakes. Don't be a perfectionist. God, perfectionist is the definition of failure, because only Jesus was perfect. Only God is perfect. And you're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to offend her without meaning to. You're going to make her cry and just, ask forgiveness, forgive yourself, and so on. An example, I had my father left my mother and he started dating another woman. And by a coincidence, she had a son who I went to high school with. And, we were not good friends, but we were acquaintances. And so it was very awkward. Now all of a sudden I have this stepbrother, from a relationship that was, unfaithful. And so I'll tell a little story about, trying to listen to that still small voice in your ear, that, the intuitive voice. Uh, it was when I was sailing and I was going sailing, stopped at my father's gas station to get some gas. And John was there, my stepbrother, my new stepbrother.
mhm.
And he says, "Oh, hi, Dave. How you doing?" And I said, "Hi, John." He says, "Where are you going?" And I'm pulling the boat behind me, so it's obvious where I'm going. I'm going sailing. Oh, sounds like fun. And I hear a voice in my head, in my ear. It's like saying, "Ask John to go with you today." But instead, I heard come out of my mouth, "Hey, you should come with us next time, maybe next week." He said, "Yeah, sure." So I got my gas, went sailing, had a great time, get home, and the phone rings. It says, "Hello." And silence on the other end of the line. It was my father. I says, "Oh, what's up?" And he was quiet again. And he says, "John killed himself today." I says, "No, I just saw him at the gas station. We're going sailing next week." I felt so guilty that I didn't listen to that voice. Would he still be alive today? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But there's so many suicidal people out there suffering from depression, and we can't ignore, if there's depression, is suicide far behind. And so it took me a long time to forgive myself, and to move on, because I know God forgave me. But like I said, it's harder to forgive yourself. But just be aware, don't be clueless. There's so many hurting people out there. And a lot of them just need you to be a friend or say a friendly thing, And let's face it, caregivers have a very high suicidal rate anyway. And so, you know, we need to minister to each other. Support groups are great. And that's why I have this online support group of 34,000.
Mhm.
Back in the olden days, you had to go to a physical place and get support. But now it's so easy with all these support groups, online.
So is that the key way that you are helping and supporting caregivers at this point? Because you've spoken all over the world, you've written books, you've been on all the TV programs, you have the podcast.
Yeah,
What's
I've tried everything. And I like to think that something is working, so I continue. I'm most passionate about and continue doing my podcast, because at the very least, all you got to do is tune in once a week for 30 minutes. God, is that hard to do? and the website is there, and it's got the videos and the hammock wisdom, and that's where I put the shows, and the shows are on like 27 global audio and video platforms, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Blog Talk Radio, and then they're on terrestrial radio on the syndicated part. That's my monthly show. So I mean, I can only hope that I'm helping people. Sometimes I wonder, but I understand that everybody does that. They all wonder, am I really making a difference?
Mm,
But then, you'll get an email or a phone call from someone who just says, "Man, you saved my life," and if I only saved one guy's life, it was all worth it. So I don't know how many lives I'm saving. I don't know how many people are actually listening. It's hard to get accurate numbers on it's like the Nielsen ratings for podcasts. They really don't exist, not like television. But I'm doing my best, and I'll do it till I die, and that way I can go to sleep with a clear conscience and know I've done everything I can. And now that I'm thinking about retiring, I'll maybe pull back a little from things because it's a lot of hard work. I even
mhm,
put on a caregiver retreat and vacation symposium in Acapulco. It was for an entire week, and very few people took advantage of it, but I had a great time, and I invited my kids, and we all had a good time.
mhm.
But and for the caregivers that did show up, they had a great time as well. Just relaxing and enjoying themselves, having a margarita, laying by the pool, talking with other caregivers, and but it should be sold out every time I do it, but it's
Right.
not. So I've learned to stop being disappointed at the performance of caregivers who are, you got to have empathy for them. They're overwhelmed, and I remember how I was when I was overwhelmed. I wrote that letter, so
Mhm,
you can't really blame them or judge them. It is what it is. But everybody has got to get out of the hole that they've dug themselves into and say, I'm not going to let this thing defeat me. I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to put my needs first. I'm going to, take care of me before I take care of the loved one. And that way, we're both happy. When I was a father of a 4-year-old, and I had to babysit a lot of times, I would choose things that we both enjoyed. If I enjoyed it and she didn't, then we'd have a happy camper. If she enjoyed it and I didn't, I was bored,
mhm.
So I would find things that we both enjoyed doing, like go-kart riding, and even in my office while I was doing work, we had fun things that you both have to have fun, or life is not going to be worth living, unfortunately. So
Right.
that's my advice.
I think that's really great advice. Do you think that Charlene has had a pretty positive attitude over the years as well? Or
Yes.
yes?
Yes. She has a smile on her face most of the time, joy in her heart most of the time. Most of it, she says, comes from God. She points
Mhm,
up and smiles, but she loves me as well.
mhm,
And she's a wonderful wife. I mean, she can still cook. She cooks her gourmet meals on occasion. She does dinner parties, if you can believe it. Shops at the store, cooks for 5 days. I mean, she grabs things under one arm and biting in a wheelchair. And I said, when she's carrying all this stuff, I said, ask for help, you know, and but we're very happy, and she cooks, she cleans, she does the laundry. I come home, it's like, where's the elves? And no, she did it all by herself, and I don't know how she does it. But I'm very grateful because I don't have to change her diaper or anything like that. She could go to the bathroom by herself. She can take a shower with just a little help with me helping her get in there.
mhm,
She can transfer from the chair to the bed. Every now and then she'll fall down, and so it's a little challenging getting her up. So I bought one of these Hoyer lifts,
mhm,
if I have to, because it's hard, and I'm getting older, and my back hurts sometimes. I don't want to hurt myself, but we can still manage each other. And one day maybe we won't be able to, and one day we may have to go into an assisted living home where people can help us, and but we're gonna keep doing what we can do. So she was smart in picking a guy 10 years younger, because they say that women All right. Women live longer, so we're kind of even in the aches and the pains department.
Hmm. Well, I think it's a love story.
It is. Make a
Yeah.
Hallmark movie. They already made a documentary out of it. They're trying to get it on a film festival, but nothing yet. But we'll see.
So the
Um,
film's already made. It's out there.
it's not finished. It's almost made.
Yeah.
But and there are two versions of it. So, I've learned to just let it be, let go and let God. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I'm not gonna stress about it. I'm not gonna strive to make it happen. The Bible says, do not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time you'll reap a harvest if you not give up. So, that's my philosophy.
So interestingly, I just interviewed a woman prior to this conversation, or I just had a conversation with Mary Lou Falcone. Have you met her yet?
No.
Her husband had Lewy body dementia
Hmm.
and was living with Lewy body dementia for a
Oh,
long time, and so she was his caregiver. And he passed away in 2020. She wrote a book. She's working with David Hyde Pierce,
okay.
Fraser, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
That so anyway, they just executive produced a movie a documentary that is
Wow.
following three people, three families at different parts of the
Uh-huh.
country, caregiver scenario. Anyway, I would love to introduce you to her. She's lovely.
Oh, great. I
Like,
love to do that.
maybe there could be some synchronicity
Yeah.
there. Or
Whatever happens, it was meant
yeah,
to happen. And, uh, being on the show was just something that just happened. I didn't plan it. You called me.
yeah. Well, I remember seeing a video of you, this dude, like in his hammock in the backyard talking about caregiving. I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah, I like to do that.
Yeah, I love it. And you spend some time with your great granddaughter, your great
Yes, I
grandpa.
have three daughters, seven grandchildren, and three great grandchildren. I can't believe it.
That's amazing.
And the one we see the most often is the 3-year-old. She's Melanie, and she is just amazing. She's like this little adult, and she's so funny. And after she visits, I'm a little tired because come here, Grandpa. Let me show you this. Come here, Grandpa. Come here, Grandpa. She likes to go for walks. She likes to ride the bikes, and she's very active. And hopefully, she keeps me young.
Well, it's working. I think it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. I'm very,
Thanks so
very
much for having
grateful.
me on. Thank you. It's fun.
It's a great conversation. And I will let
And you
you
do
know,
this every week?
I do am doing this every week. So I try and do my own little 20-minute pontification, whatever, on Fridays. And then Wednesdays, I try and have someone on to either elevate a caregiver
Oh,
story, share a
I need to.
product or
I need to
service.
start watching.
I would love that. It's mostly audio. I do put the videos up occasionally, but I'm a one woman show. There's no team. So
Well, you're very well. You're a very good interviewer.
thank you. Thank you very much. My background is senior living. The
Yeah.
products that I'm creating, these online videos, are to help people make better decisions faster, because we just watch these half dead caregivers moving half dead people into the building. And then once they're in our care, we can usually get everybody to rebound, get kind of back to their roles.
Yeah.
Um, but then there's an adjustment period and just this big mental health component. So I'm creating online videos to assist people with that, and then speaking and coaching.
So my biggest challenge now is my aunt, my mother's sister. My mother died, I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago, and she has no one else. She um, broke her ankle because she went shopping alone, and she shouldn't have done that. They live in a independent living. She's 84, and her boyfriend, she calls her fiance, who's 89, I think. And they both have a little dementia. She has a little more than him, but she broke her ankle in 5 places. They did surgery on it, put a plate in there. Now she's in a rehab center, and she's going to have to be there for several months, and it's driving her crazy. And she's going to the doctor tomorrow. I hope he can put a walking cast on her so they can uh, start rehabbing the bad foot because they can't do it because you can't put weight on it yet. And then we're trying to get both of them approved for Medi-Cal,
Hmm.
Medicaid,
Hmm.
so that we can put them in a very nice assisted living facility together so that they stay together because they really help each other. If you have somebody, even in a facility, it's so hard. There's those lonely moments when you're all alone and you're just feeling like nobody called. My mother used to say, you haven't called me in weeks. I said, Mom, I called you yesterday. They forget.
Yeah.
And it's just they torture themselves. But to have somebody who's there living with you, if you can find it, and it's a miracle that they found each other because
Hmm.
her husband died a few years ago, and as far as she was concerned, she was never going to get married again. But they found each other, and
Right.
it's like a Hallmark movie. So many Hallmark movies out there.
I
So
love
pray that
that.
she heals quickly and we get her approved and we find a place for both of them because they can't live in independent anymore because they need to move on to the next one. As her dementia gets worse, we don't have to move them again. She just moves down the hallway.
Hmm.
And so they have something called the Assisted Living Waiver Program. If you qualify for Medi-Cal, Medicaid, then you can Medicaid will pay for assisted living 100%. And so that's a great thing. That's one of a lot of free things that the government offers that a lot of people don't know about. And
Right.
if you're a vet, you get it free assisted living. If you're the spouse of a vet, you get free assisted living. A lot of people don't know that.
They don't know that. And the system is broken. We don't have enough beds.
Yes, and we don't have enough people. And it's like the tsunami. It's like the Social Security. Too many people taken out, not enough people putting in. And it's the same thing now that baby boomers are getting older, they're needing care. But there's not enough caregivers, there's not enough care facilities, and I don't know what's going to happen. It's a sad scenario.
Well, I think what's going to happen is we're going to change the trajectory of how we're aging. And I think you're part of that messaging and solution too, right? Like you're exercising, you're eating healthy. Like
Live longer, huh?
this is like, we don't want to just live longer. We want to have quality of life too.
Yeah. And there's things you can do to prevent dementia because that's the number one cause of going into a nursing home. And I did buy and when I was 49 a long-term care policy, which everyone should have
Hmm.
because there's not enough money out there for these places and they're very expensive. $8,000 a month, for a
Right.
care facility with a dementia ward and stuff. And if you're not on Medicaid, how are you going to afford that? And all of the crappy places, excuse me,
Mm.
uh, you know, that the ones, the nice, let me just say, the nice places don't typically take Medicaid. A few of them do. You got to look for them like a needle in a haystack. But you don't want to have to go through, okay, do I get this nice place or do I get this crappy place? Have a policy in place so that you don't have
Mhm.
to make those tough decisions.
I did an episode a few episodes ago called Make Plans, Not Promises,
Hmm.
because so many people make their kids promise, like, don't ever put me in one of those places. Or if I don't know
Yes.
who you are, smother me with a pillow. No.
Yes, and talk about guilt. That's what
Right.
and I tell these people all the time, well, I promised my husband that I would take care of my mother. And I says, you need to break that promise immediately. You go and say, I made a promise, realize this promise is killing me. So
Yeah.
here's what I want to do. I want to renege on that promise, but I want to make a new promise. My new promise is that I promise to give you the best care possible because it might mean an assisted living facility. It might mean a nursing home. It might mean other things, but I'm going to do my best to find the best one out there that we
Right.
can afford. But if I do what I promised, it's going to kill me and I'll probably die before you because that's what the statistics say.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to happen to me, Mom, do you? Oh, no. Get them to agree with you instead of saying, you're going to put me in a nursing home. Bring a brochure home from one of these nice places. And I
Hmm.
mean, I put my mother in one and I said, this is nice. I wouldn't mind living here.
Hmm.
I really wouldn't. It's nice and it's not lonely. You have all these people. They have entertainment. They have music. They bring in kids, from nursery schools to do. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's not what people think, you know. Now there are some places out there that I wouldn't put my cat in, you know, and you find them by just going in unannounced, you know, do the sniff test. If it smells like urine instead of, you know, bleach like a hospital, that's not the place. If the hallways are full of wheelchairs of people staring at the wall, you know, like the lights are on, no one's home, that's not the place. You want places that have activities, you know, they're doing fun things, bingo and you know, Wii or you know,
Right.
other electronic games or whatever, interactions, you know, piano players coming in, karaoke, whatever. You know, there are fun places out there, but you don't want the bad ones.
Yeah. Make
It
plans, not
takes work to
ones.
find them.
It,
There's
and
there's
the
places
narrative
like
is changing. It's changing.
yeah, there are places that will help you find a place like
Yes.
I think care.com will help you find facilities, a place for mom, you know, other organizations. Just, you know, register with them, tell them what you need. They'll figure out what your level of care is, and they'll help you find it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the illuminating senior living product is what I put together to help people have all
Yeah.
that information.
And I love what some countries are doing. They're actually building dementia communities
Yes.
where you can live without being locked up, you know, because it's the whole town is safe, you know. It's like
Yes.
a village.
Yeah.
And so I
Well,
think there's a lot more we can do because if there's a shortage of people, you know, having a safe, not just a safe room or a safe house, but a safe community, you know, where
right.
everybody's looking out after each other, you know.
It's a beautiful thing. It's the future.
I hope so.
I'm
Good
counting on it. Well, I'm creating it. I'm going to help create it.
for you.
So are you.
I
Thank
hope so.
you.